Hello student, welcome to the first session or video session of object-oriented programming language using C for second year students. It is basically a theory paper. The paper code is 2.5. So the current scenario of the situation does not provide any offline classes, that is the classroom section. So we are focusing the online classes by using videos or the video classes for you. So as you know that what is programming language in first year using C. So this is a new session. In this session we'll learn about the object oriented programming language, that is C++. So before starting this session, we should focus about what is language. As you know that language is nothing, it is called the means of communication. It means we are normally using natural languages such as English, Hindi, Odia to communicate with each other or to communicate our ideas as well as emotions to others. So it is normally called, the language is nothing, it is called the communication medium between two entities or two persons. Similarly, a programmer uses a computer language to instruct a computer what the user wants it to do. So before starting this session, basically we'll learn about the computer language. So in this session, we just focus about what is programming language, why there are so many programming languages there, and what are the different types of programming languages available in computing world. So let's begin with the first particularly option or the first particularly point, that is what is programming language. There are certain definitions there. Some of the definition I just explain about that. First of all, a programming language is nothing, it is a set of commands, instructions and other syntax used to create a software program. It means a programming language is basically called a set of commands, that is you can say instructions or you can say set of commands and other syntax, that is the certain rules which are normally create a software program. So basically a software is made of or made by different programming language which is available. A programming language is a set of instruction through which a human interact with computer. Because as you know that there are different type of generation of languages there. In first year in computer fundamental, we learn about computer language, that is machine language, assembly language and as well as high level language. So in the case of high level language, it is simply written in English, having its own vocabularies or you can say having its own grammar. So a programming language is basically called a set of instructions through which we can interact with computer, because it is purely based on high level programming or high level language. A programming language is also a set of rules that provides a way of telling a computer what operations to perform. Simply, when we solve a mathematics in note, there are certain steps or there are certain particularly instruction sets through which we can actually solve a particular problem. Similarly, a programming language having certain rules that is normally called its own grammar, own particularly vocabulary so which provides of telling a computer, we just instruct a computer what type of operations can or what type of operations to perform. So there are different type of, like you can say, operations there in programming language. Some of part or some of that you will learn in C language. So next particular definition is a programming language is a computer language programmers use to develop a software program like scripts and other sets of instructions for computer to execute. So by using a particularly programming language in computer, basically the programmers may develop different type of software programs, different type of scripting concept or scripts, and other set of instruction which are normally executed by the help of computers. There are several type of languages there, or there are several type of programming languages there which share similarities, because each and every program having its own structure or own particularly architecture, but most of the programming languages having similarity or there are certain similar features there. Take example like C, C++ and Java. There are three subsequent programming languages which are available in computing world. So basically C having its own particular structure, and C++ normally adopt some of the structure of C. So that's why C programming is normally called the superset of C++. So each and every programming language having its own syntax, and as well as once a programmer learns the language rules, that there are different rules are there, belongs to different programming languages, and there are certain particularly syntax there and as well as structures there. Those particularly are normally writing by the help of certain text editor, or you can say the IDE. So basically in this case the IDE, so in this case this is particularly the term is called IDE. IDE is nothing, it is called integrated development environment. So basically this particularly integrated development environment enables programmers to consolidate, combine certain things, the different aspects of writing a program or writing a computer program. So basically this particularly like software, or you can say this particularly like program, that is IDE, provides or it enables the programmer to consolidate the different aspects of writing the computer program. By the help of this particularly IDE, we can increase the productivity by combining common activities of writing software into a single application. So IDE is nothing, whenever like you like in C programming, there is one IDE called Turbo C editor. So by using that particular editor, we basically develop or design a program. We can compile or debugging the program, and after that we can deploy the program, or we can testing the program, or finally we can execute that program. So the most of activities like designing, developing, like you can say like deploying, like you can say testing and executing, all particularly such activities can done in a single place, and that particular single application is basically called IDE. So your C++ also having one IDE called Turbo C++ editor. It is similar or like particularly C editor, or the C particularly like text editor. So there are also certain things there, like there are certain rules there are certain syntax there are certain particular structure of the programming language there, because C++ and C structure, C programming structure and C++ programming structure are similar, not are similar, but there are certain differences between C and C++ programming or the programming structure. And the next one is basically called, as you know that, what do you mean by source code? Source code is nothing. It is a fundamental component. Generally, it is a basic component of a computer program that is created by a programmer. So the particularly contents or the code which are normally developed or designed by the programmer is basically called source code. So if a program having certain sequence of statements, like you can say like statements are there in a program, like particular program is consisting of certain statements through which we can actually like to solve certain problems. And particularly a source code is a fundamental components of a computer program that is created by a programmer. It can be read and particularly easily understood by the human being. So because it is basically based on the high level programming language in simple English. So that's why in high level programming language, every particularly code which is related with that is human interface code, as I say in computer fundamental class. So it can be converting into the machine code. So that's why the computer can receive the human interface code, and after that it can converting into the machine independent, machine particularly related code. So that's why when a programmer like type a sequence of particular statements, like in a program like C, we are having certain sequence of statements. So the particularly programmer whenever types certain statements or certain sequence of statements by the help of text editor, by using text editor, and saves the sequence as a text file. As you know that in C programming, there is one ID called Turbo C editor where we can type our code, and after that we can save the file as .c file. Say that my first program is called first program, that is first.c, and that particular file is basically called a source code file. So that's why this particularly source code file, by using text editor or any particularly IDE, is said to be, or it particularly contain the source code. So there are different type of particularly programming languages there, which having share the similarities of other programming language. There are near about 250 programming languages there in world, and some of the or the most of the programming languages are similar, like similar structure, or particularly it's having its own particularly like structure, but little bit modification or little bit difference, like by using syntax and so on so forth. And basically, what is programming language? Continue. So basically, English is a natural language, as I said earlier. It has words, symbols, and as well as grammatical rules. So as you know that every individual particular natural language or any other language having its own words and as well as symbols and as well as grammatical rules. The programming language is also having like words, symbols, and as well as its own rules. So it is very simple to code a particularly programming language or programming or a program if we particularly focus about the English communication, because it is purely based on high level programming language. Similarly, these particularly grammatical rules are called as syntax or general form. So simple in C programming, the syntax is nothing. Basically, when referring to a particular programming or programming language, it is a set of rules for grammar and spelling. It means using character structures that a particularly computer can interact. So as you know that like in C, there are certain tokens there. Token is nothing, it is called the individual elements of a program. So in a single statement, there are so many tokens are there. Take a simple example. We just declare a variable, like first of all, it needs data type, that is you can say int, and followed by the identifier or the variable name, that is called num. So then after that we can use a particularly semicolon, that is called the sentence terminator. So int, then followed by space, then num, then followed by semicolon. This is basically called the subsequence particular statement. So for that, the general form or the syntax is basically the first of all data type, followed by space, then followed by variable name, and followed by semicolon. This is basically called the general form of declaring a variable, and it is also known as syntax. So each programming language has a different particular set of syntax rules. Because simple example, I just explained about that. In C, for inputting and output statement or input and output statement, we normally use scanf and printf. But in C programming, in C++ programming, we are not using printf and scanf. Instead of like printf and scanf, we are using COUT and CIN. That is cout and cin, character out and character in place of printf and as well as scanf. So every particularly programming language having its own particularly syntax rules. So that's why there are different particular programming, like in Java the syntax somehow interrelated with C++, but it is somehow different from C++ and as well as C. So a programming language is typically divided into two elements. The first one is called syntax and the second one is called semantics. So generally the particularly programming language is basically divided into two subsequent particularly parts, or the two subsequent particularly elements. One thing is called syntax, as I say earlier what is syntax, and the second one is called semantics. Semantics is nothing, it is particularly about the meaning of the sentence or the statements which is defined inside a programming language. So basically whenever you define a particular sentence, that should be justified about that, because there are certain grammatical particularly rules are there to define a particularly sentence in natural language. So we are normally following the grammatical rule of the subsequent natural language. So that's why it answers the questions, means every individual statement having valid or invalid, it can be done or it can be normally monitoring by the semantics. So semantics is nothing, basically it is all about the meaning of the sentence, means how the sentence particularly how the sentence having its own meaning. So that's why a programming language is basically divided into two elements, that is syntax and as well as semantics. So that's why the basic programming language is nothing like we can use day-to-day life. Like in C programming, we learn about the first particularly programming language, that is how the C programming or the C particularly code should be implemented by using C language. So programming language is basically, or you can say programming language is normally completely based on the English grammar, because C or any other programming language is completely based on high level programming language. Thank you.